Hey guys, welcome to section 7, chapter 8 of the Pre-Algebra program. This is our final section of this chapter, and I know it's been several weeks actually in this chapter. We've been learning a lot of great stuff and getting a lot of practice in. So I just want to add one more element to all of the information that we have learned in chapter 8. And in this section, we're going to learn how to write linear equations from both the slope and the y-intercept, and then also while looking at a graph. So we're just utilizing the same formula that we've been using for the last 2 sections or so. Y equals mx plus b. And just to review, m is the slope of our function, and b is the y-intercept. And the y-intercept is where the function crosses the y-axis. And the slope is the rate in which we move from one point to another. So remember, our slope was our rise over our run. So if we were given the slope of a function is 1/2, and the y-intercept is -1, we could write the function by simply plugging in our information. So y equals our slope, m is our slope, which in this case is 1/2, x, plus the y-intercept. Well, in this case, that's -1. Now, just to get in the habit, we don't want to write those two symbols together, the addition and subtraction. We need to remember when we were doing our integers that a positive times a negative is a negative. So we would rewrite this as simply 1/2 x minus 1. So that would be the function for the information given. Let me squeeze in one more here. What if we had the slope equal to -3 and the y-intercept is equal to 2? Again, we would need y equals the slope, which is m, so -3, x, and then plus the y-intercept there at the end. So when you're given the slope and the y-intercept, it's pretty simple. Just make sure you're putting them in the right spaces. So the slope, of course, has to replace the m, and the y-intercept needs to replace the b. Okay, one other skill here. What if we were given a graph and we needed to write the function given the graph? So I'm going to go ahead and put a graph together for you. So what if we need to write a function using the graph? So I'm going to go ahead and draw this graph for you using my little ruler function here. Which is pretty neat. I'm not going to lie. I kind of like this ruler function. All right. So now just to review, in order for us to write the function, we need the slope and we need the y-intercept. And we can get both of these right from the graph. So of course, we want to be able to identify where it crosses the y. And that right there is going to be at 2. So I know that So I know that the y-intercept is 2. And then of course, we need to be able to count our slope. And our slope, like we just said, is the rise over the run. So I'm going to start at 1 point here, and I'm going to count. I go up 1, 2, so my rise is 2, and then my run is 1. And I'm running to the right, which means my slope is positive. My slope is positive. And that's how we're able to tell between positive and negative slopes when we run to the right. And we don't like to write 2 over 1. It's just the integer 2. So now I have my slope and my y-intercept, so I can do exactly what I just did in the previous example. I can make my substitutions. So I know my slope now is 2. I got that from this number. And my y-intercept also happens to be 2. So this is the function that's represented here. So if you have the y-intercept and the slope, you can do a lot of things, which is super neat and kind of fun, actually. So let's go ahead and do another one. And what happens if I have something like this? And I'm going to go ahead and use my ruler. If you guys have a straight edge, you should totally practice using it. Okay, so now we need to identify our slope and our y-intercept. The y-intercept is always the easiest because you just simply look where this function is crossing the y. And for us, it's -3. Now we're going to count. We go up 1, so the rise is 1. And then the run is 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So because we ran to the left, our slope needs to be negative. All right, so remember when we go up and to the right, it's positive. When we go up and to the left, it's negative. So now we have our slope and our y-intercept, and we can just simply plug in. Our slope is -1/4 x, and our slope is that plus -3. But now we want to get into the habit of changing these two signs together. A positive times a negative is a negative. So I only want to see one sign before each term. If you happen to have two signs like that, I want you to simplify it using the rules that we've studied in the earlier chapter about positives and negatives and how they multiply together. Okay, so our function for this graph is y equals -1/4 x minus 3. Hopefully you guys are getting just a ton of practice and you're feeling very good. I feel like these examples are pretty simple. We're actually only doing about 2/3 of this section. I feel like the last piece of this section isn't really necessary at this point, and I just want you guys to be practicing this part of it. So I just want you to be able to write the function given the slope and the y-intercept, and then be able to look at a graph, be able to identify the slope and the y-intercept, and then be able to write the function. So you get several days with this. Hopefully it goes really well, and then study up because next week we have both a quiz and a test over all of this material. So go ahead and finish up your notes, read through the examples, and begin your assignment.